The Amazing Digital Circus sucks. You know a show's bad when it's on YouTube free? None of the characters are interesting. Gangle's a crybaby, Jocks is depressed, Zubal's angry, Ragatha's people pleaser, and Kinger. What does he do again? Someone please tell me what more there is to these characters other than that.
Is this rage bait? I can tell you were born in '08 if you think everything you don't agree with is rage bait. How big is your house? Anyway, so The Amazing Digital Circus is a pretty popular show now, and the show is actually pretty good. I actually really like it. I know it gets like a little bit of a bad rap because of the content farms on YouTube. A lot of the visuals with the Digital Circus is pretty bright and visually very, you know, childlike and cartoony. And I think that works really well in the context of the show. And also it's just pretty cool. The art is really well done. The animation has only gotten better. The jump from the first episode to the latest one is crazy. I really love the animation. But while some videos on TikTok are rage bait like this, well, probably rage bait. I don't know. There's a lot of interesting people on TikTok. There's a pretty decent amount of speculation and theories that people have made for the Amazing Digital Circus around its characters and future lore that we could see. And today I wanted to go through a few theories, talk about the show and the characters, and just see how good some of the older theories are. We're in episode 6 right now, and there's only a few more episodes left. So a lot of the theories that people have made like a year ago now do not hold up as well anymore, but there are a lot of theories that people still swear by. It's kind of similar to how a lot of FNAF theories didn't age well because, you know, each game like changes everything. I wouldn't say the Amazing Digital Circus is that extreme with the lore and speculation. It has a few hidden details in the background, especially in episode 1. But let's go through a few videos and check out a couple theories.
Craving food, unlike any of the other human characters we've seen so far, is another tell that he's an AI. But wait, I hear you saying, doesn't the show's official synopsis...
Okay, so this is one of those game theories. This is film theory, actually. It looks like this video came out after Matt had retired, too. So it's one with the new host. I guess if we were going to talk about bad theories, well, bad being relative. I guess if we're going to talk about theories, the most popular one I've seen by far is the theory that Jax, the character, is actually an AI and not a human, which I think has been disproven even before people started talking about the theory. One of the biggest pieces of evidence that I've seen was people pointing out how in the Netflix description, it mentions how these humans have to deal with the AI being Kane. Oh, let me pull up the actual Netflix. So the actual Netflix description is a woman gets trapped in a bizarre circus-themed virtual world with 5 other people and forced to play games under the direction of a wacky AI. Yeah, so this pretty much confirms that, you know, there's not a hidden AI because the description wouldn't lie, unless it's like a plot twist, but I think even then it's not. There's a little bit of a contradiction there if you believe the Jax is an AI theory. I'm going to talk about the story a little bit. I'm assuming people who are watching this video have already seen part of the show. If not, I highly recommend it. A lot of the characters can seem a little bit, you know, cringe, but there's a lot of nuance with the writing. If you look past a lot of the quirks of the jokes, I actually like the jokes a lot, but I understand that the humor is a little bit subjective and a lot of people don't like the quirkiness of the humor. But even the plot underneath it is really, really interesting. And Jax is probably the most popular character, if I had to guess, right next to like Pomni. And he has a huge fan base because a lot of people think he's, you know, this secretly good person who's checking in on everybody, when a lot of his actions very much do not give the impression that he's a good person. And so because of the nuance that's in his character, I think it makes a lot of people attracted to his character personality because he's fun to watch, he's entertaining. I'm not 100% sure where this theory came from. I know that this one that we're covering right now is from Film Theory, where Jax is an AI, but I do not think that they started the Jax AI theory. I think it was probably a few other people, maybe just some people in the comments spreading ideas about what they think about the theory, and then Film Theory kind of put it all together. I'm not going to break down every single piece of the evidence they've had, but I do just want to talk about it on a story level why I don't think this makes sense. Because as much as I can be like, oh, well, you know, Netflix description and, you know, a few things in the show wouldn't add up if he was an AI, it just wouldn't make sense. The only way I can really see it if it's Jax found out that he was an AI and he didn't know, because he really acts like a human throughout a lot of this. And with the AIs that we see across the world, there are things that kind of give away the fact that they're an AI. Kane especially, because, you know, he's very, you know, extravagant or whatever. It's very clear he's an AI. But the closest one is maybe Gummy Goo, and the reason I think that works was because he didn't know he was an AI. So I guess you can make the argument that Jax is an AI based off that. But on a story level, I really do not think this works. Jax's character, I wouldn't say he's gonna get an arc in this. I really doubt he's gonna get that much of a redemption arc. If anything, he's gonna do something in the end where he's gonna be like, okay, I'll do this one good thing, but that still doesn't justify all his actions leading up to that point. But when it comes to his his character, it's very important that he is a human. That builds up a lot of his motivations and his insecurities. I know I'm going to talk about this theory a little bit longer, but just bear with me here. Look, Cain is insecure about the fact that people don't like him or like his ideas, and that's because his AI programming kind of makes it seem like he's supposed to make these fun adventures that people like. And so if it doesn't match up, then he starts getting all glitchy and weird, and that happens in the show. His insecurities come from the fact he's an AI where his actions doesn't lead the results he wants, and then that's where he sort of struggles or has those moments of maybe abstracting, which is kind of weird because until this point we've only ever seen humans abstract. Jax, his insecurities from a very broad, very just like surface level observation, he doesn't want to get close to other people because he's lost his friends before. You know, it's implied that he was friends with Ribbit and then Ribbit abstracted, and because of like his hurt through that, he very much pushes Pomni away, who is probably the only person who gave him like a chance that we've seen on screen. And so this insecurity of like getting close to other people, not being able to accept friendship, comes out of the fact that he doesn't want to feel that pain again. And that would only really make sense if he was a person, because that's just something that people do. A lot of his like motivations and his actions can be explained by just how people act. I wouldn't say he's relatable. He's definitely does things just for the sake of being cruel, but the motivations I think are relatable. He just struggles with being vulnerable, and that's something that a lot of people in the real world struggle with. And I think a lot of nuance and a lot of how fans connect with Jax would be lost if he was an AI, because if he was an AI, what is the purpose of him, right? A lot of people have assumed maybe he was just an NPC who got tagged along, and then, you know, Cain couldn't tell the difference. But if that's the case, then it just wouldn't make sense for him to be this standoffish. The NPCs are created to be sort of, you know, approachable in a sense. Like, yeah, you got your antagonists and stuff, but they're either one note or just take things very seriously. I guess you can make the argument that in the latest episode, Jax tried to double down on the whole being a cartoon stuff, but it really was just a facade, because you can see he kind of breaks character towards the end in his argument with Pomni. So it really doesn't make sense for him to be an AI or an artificial intelligence that's created from Cain or even just a digital circus like way before. It just wouldn't make sense for his character. And I think that's the reason I don't believe it. I don't much care about the evidence. I think I've talked about this before, especially when it came with Five Nights at Freddy's theories, but I don't really give too much importance to evidence lining up as much as it like would be accurate. It would make sense for plot holes, as long as the story is good and like the characters are cool. Jax is definitely not a good person, but he is a really well-written character. And while the AI theory could make sense with pieces of evidence, it just wouldn't make a good story in my opinion. But let me know what you guys think about that. Let's move on to the next theory.
How is this even possible? I thought Cain couldn't... I'm normally not too good with memories. It's not the most cheerful memory, but it's one I at least have control over. Good memories can do a lot. Hold on to them.
This is a really cool idea, actually, and I will credit the people who make the videos. It's just going to be on screen if you want to check them out. I highly recommend that you do. One of the things that was, I think, in the first episode was Cain admitting that he can't really control people's minds, but over the course of the show, he kind of does do that. Not only does it make Jax vegan and change his personality, kind of change his character for that, but I don't necessarily know if he's responsible for making Kinger very just forgetful. When Kinger is just in like the brightness or like during the day or whatever, in a well-lit room with a candle even, he's very just kind of wacky, kind of crazy. I'm not necessarily sure if it's forgetfulness. There's a few moments where people sneak up on him and he gets like, you know, surprised, but I don't know if that has to do with just the memory. The biggest point that makes me think that it is a memory is during this actual bar scene, where they're just having those mini adventures. He does say, wait, what? Whenever like Pomni talks about his wife, so that kind of implies he did forget about it, you know, about having a wife. But I'm not sure how responsible Cain is for that. It would make sense, and I think I would totally accept it if it like was Cain who made him just forgetful, unless he's in the dark. I'm not sure why he would add that, you know, just condition that, oh, if he's in the dark, then, you know, just like reverse everything about the forgetful stuff, because he can remember stuff and is very just competent and very like psychologically sane whenever he's just in a dark room. That kind of makes me think that Cain isn't responsible, just because why would he make that just a condition? Because of that, it kind of makes me think it's more so also just his coping mechanism or the way he deals with the like absurdity of the circus. And he does talk about this in the horror episode. His mind does get like a lot less foggy when he's in the dark and is able to be like probably the most competent and sane individual in the circus. I think that there's like two possibilities. One, potentially Kane did that and then just gave a condition. Oh yeah, just reverse all that goofy stuff if he's in the dark. If he's in the dark, then it doesn't matter. But if you do believe this theory, then potentially it could be based off what Am did in I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream, which the show is based off of. I love that short story, by the way. It's really good. And a lot of the plot points and just characters are very, very much based off the story. Obviously, it changes a few things, but in the story, Am, which Kane is based off of, was able to kind of control the minds and the physicality of the 5 people he has trapped, but also like their minds and their IQ, their intelligence. I think he makes this one guy just basically back into like a primate type of person and is very just like a caveman almost. And so maybe what the series is implying is that Kane did something very similar to Kinger. And I think that kind of makes sense. I would 100% be ready to accept that. The only thing that makes me just hesitant on fully buying this theory is that Kinger does remember stuff in the dark, and I don't see what reason Kane would have for adding that. Or maybe he just straight up didn't even think about it. He does make a comment about having all-seeing eyes, so maybe it's like an active thing that Kane does to make Kinger forget about stuff. And so in just dark rooms, he doesn't have his all-seeing eyes on him, and maybe can't see him to change up his brain and stuff. Maybe it's like an active thing. But because of the voting system and stuff, it kind of makes me think that that just wouldn't be an issue he would have if he really can control their minds. Overall, pretty solid theory. I think because of the story connection with I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream, I think it makes it a little bit better because it implies that Kane is kind of willing to do whatever it takes to make sure that people are, staying sane. Just because Kane is an AI and, does things that messes with some of the characters sometimes, I wouldn't say he is a bad figure. He's not a bad person or bad AI. I think even Gooseworks, the creator of the show, has said that Kane is actively trying to help out the humans, but because he's trying to help them, maybe he could see making Kinger forget as a way to like, oh, we can only make sure that Kinger doesn't abstract by making sure he doesn't remember stuff like his wife abstracting and whatnot. And he could see that as just like worthwhile, like the ends justify the means. So like that it adds that little touch to his character. I just don't know if that's worthwhile, because at the same time, maybe that could just straight up be Kinger's coping mechanism to the circus that's making him forget. So this one is not really a bad theory. I don't think we have enough information to disprove this just yet, but let me know what you guys think.
I just realized Pomni almost escaped. The digital circus? This literally the real life world.
Ooh, that's pretty good. I kind of like this theory a little bit. I think it'd be really funny if Pomni like really almost did just escape and the show just almost didn't happen with her in it. I think that's kind of a funny idea. I know Kane did say that he just made like a fake exit room and stuff, but with how many details just were included in this video, it kind of made me rethink that a little bit. Like, what if Kane didn't know and he just kind of made that safe face? I'm not sure if Kane can lie. I think that'd be something very interesting to dig into, just looking through all of what he says and seeing if he has lied before. At most, I would say that he does say like what he thinks, and it really wouldn't make sense for an AI that's supposed to be, just in charge, making fun games and stuff, to lie to the people playing, other than like for immersion or that kind of thing. So I'm not really sure if he would lie about the exit door. That's probably the only thing that he would have to try to solve to make sure that the series is like accurate. Other than that, I don't really see anything else wrong with this theory. Otherwise, it's just pretty cool to see just how possible exiting might be. I think ever since the first episode, I think all the characters just gave up with like exits and stuff. I mean, everybody already gave up before Pomni got there, and it seemed like she kind of gave up a little bit after the first episode. I think it'd be really interesting to see if in the next episode people tried to actually give another shot to escaping or whatever. They just noticed a glitch and they're like, oh, okay, maybe escaping is possible, because it seemed like Pomni got really close, and I think it's kind of be interesting to check those stuff out, unless that was included with what Kane was setting up. Overall, good theory.
So we all know how that is based off of I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream, right? Well, I have some theories about it and how the end might turn out. They escape. They abstract. And Kinger. At the end of I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream, Ted stayed to be tortured by the Eye, in order for the rest of the people to be free. I have a feeling Kinger is gonna pull a Ted.
Okay, I disagree with this one. I'm not saying this theory is bad. I really don't think that. I think that this could make sense as much as what I think is going to happen to the show. But I think if anyone is Ted, like in the original I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream, Ted is the narrator. It's kind of like the unreliable narrator of the story. And he's the one who stays behind after the fact, after everybody else, passes on. I really don't think Ted's personality matches with Kinger. A lot of people have taken that clip from the intermission of, like the bowling balls that land on Pomni and Jax, and then the cake that lands on Gangle and all that. And in the context of the show, it wouldn't make sense for this to foreshadow anything. I think this, as much as it would be a cool idea and stuff, I think the only lore thing we got out of the intermission was just showing Ribbit's room and showing Jax being, just upset about it or just being stuck in that place. The intermission did happen in universe. Kane did, make the animation stuff all real. And we know that because Zubul kind of points that out. It's like, hey, what are we doing right now, Kane? And Kane's like, oh, okay, we'll just go back to the story. I think it happened in universe, so it wouldn't make sense for it to foreshadow future stuff, as much as that would be cool. But talking about the similarities between Ted and Kinger, I actually think the more likely option for someone ending up in Ted's fate is not Kinger, but it is Jax. I can totally see, and I think I talked about this before, I could totally see Jax making some kind of selfless thing like how Ted does in the original story. Makes the others, safely leave or exit, and he stays behind. Well, I don't think in the Amazing Digital Circus, Kane would torture Jax like in the original. In the original, Am is a lot crueler than Kane. While they're both, powerful AIs, I don't think that Kane is really capable of wanting to hurt the people. But it would still feel like torture in a way because Jax still be stuck in the Amazing Digital Circus. So I think it would make way more sense for Jax to do that than Kinger. I wouldn't be mad if Kinger got left behind. I think it would make sense for him not to be able to, move on due to the trauma he's like gone through. But I think that it would just make more sense for Jax. I also think Jax and Ted have a lot of similarities together. Not only like disliking Ragatha, or the only other woman character in the group, for just taking care of everybody and having some empathy. In the original story, I forgot what her name is, but she's very like similar to Ragatha in the way that she tries to take care of the group and is very nice and stuff. And while Ragatha and her like go about it in different ways, Ted and Jax do not like that character or Ragatha. Jax doesn't like Ragatha because he thinks that she's very fake for being nice to everybody. And I think there's a lot of similarities between the original 5 characters of I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream with the 5 trapped before Pomni. I don't know if there's a Pomni equivalent. I know there's an excellent video talking about this, like very same thing. And if anything, I think that theory is probably the best one I've seen about the Amazing Digital Circus. I'll put it up on screen here for a second. Highly recommend that you go check this out. I think it could play out very similar to the ending of I Have No Mouth, just because it's based off of it. I hope that they do something a little bit different just to kind of spice it up. I think it'd be very satisfying if they ended it off very similarly, but I hope they do something different just to kind of spice it up for the people who've already seen I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream. I mean, I like the theory. I just think I'd rather it be Jax and Kinger.
Fair.
Oh, I got just the thing. Here, take this.
Well, wait. What did you just do? What was that?
It's a butterfly. It can restore your health.
Did Kane mention that?
Oh, nah. I made it up.
What?
Okay, I really want to talk about this scene. The biggest takeaway I've seen from this leads a lot of people to think that Kinger was involved with making the digital circus. This, and also with the other evidence that he had a computer science degree. And so like him knowing about this feature of the bug or whatever healing, and coupled with that of his computer science stuff, makes a lot of people think that he was responsible for creating the digital circus, and that's how we kind of knew about this. This might be my hottest take yet, but I disagree with that. I don't find it impossible that Kinger could have worked on this game or on this world or whatever. I think that's probably fine, but I'm not sure if that's the reasoning behind this scene. I actually think what about this scene is kind of similar to how Pomni and Jax describe their cartoonish logic. Pomni at the end is able to kind of make some pretty impossible moves with like shooting Zubul, and a lot of the cartoon logic that's kind of implied towards the end is because the characters believe they can do something, and so they do it. And I think that's what's happening in this scene. I think Kinger's like, oh, I believe that this bug can actually heal somebody, and what he said, oh, I just made it up. That quite literally is what happened. And the only reason he doesn't like, stick with it, go crazy with it, is because it's during the day. It's during like the brightest room ever. He's probably not mentally all there, and that's part of like his coping strategy, unless he's in the dark and then he's like super sane, but he kind of just brushes it off. And I think that has more to do with that than anything else. I think that Ragatha also believed she could stop the bullet from Jax's gun with that cartoon logic too, and she believed it super hard, and that's also why that ended up hitting Jax instead of Ragatha in that scene. I think there are a lot of moments where cartoon logic applies, and this I think falls under that more so than Kinger knowing about some obscure detail of the digital circus because he helped make it. Also, he's not gonna be like all sane and all there about his memory because he's not in the dark, and I think that points more to it being cartoon logic more so than him knowing about the game. Also, not only that, but this is just an episode where they really double down on the cartoon logic about like, oh, if you believe you can do it, then you can, with Pomni like kind of realizing that through Jack showing her to be confident or to, double down on an archetype. I think because this scene is included in an episode where that's so heavy with the cartoon logic, it would make way more sense thematically for it to be that. And I think that is super cool. I think that is a really cool and like unique mechanic inside a show, and it can only really work inside the digital circus because this isn't really a grounded show because it's like it takes place in a video game, so it can get away with a lot of things like that. And what I actually hope happens with this, and there's a lot of other things that are just in the background of the show, I hope this is just never brought up again. I hope they just leave it as a weird little detail for people to speculate about like why. And I think that's what makes properties like the Amazing Digital Circus so interesting, is because they're not trying to solve every single question or moment like this. I wouldn't be surprised if they do talk about this or like have like some explanation for it, but they don't have to spoon feed every single little detail to the audience. And I love that it has moments like this where it can make sense and it gives something people to talk about and theorize and speculate with details. And some of them might be wrong, but I hope the show doesn't confirm one way or the other. I think it's far more interesting to let it just happen, and it fits so well in the context and like the tone of the show that it doesn't really stand out that much, and it doesn't serve as a weird like plot hole or whatever. I don't think this scene necessarily touches on Kinger being the creator of the circus. I think he could have worked on it from everything I've seen from the show. I just really don't think this is proof in that direction. But of course, you guys are probably going to tell me I'm wrong or something in the comments, so let me know what you guys think with that. I don't think of that. I could say whatever, but the true solution is going to be found in a YouTube comment section for sure.
We can't die from oxygen deprivation, remember? Kinger starts glowing, Ragatha's hair noodles stick up, Gangle's mask starts spinning, and Zubul turns straight.
My limbs straighten up and f*** off.
Really scary dog. Rated hot for mature Zubuls only. Unfortunately, we still need to wait until your other teammates finish their adventure before I can grant you permission to leave. Ones.
I've been trying to find parts I like since the day I got here.
So, back to the adventures.
Okay, this is a really cool idea, actually. I've seen this float around before, just the idea that Kane doesn't like Zubul, which is pretty evident, especially in that last episode where he kind of, yells at her. I really think this could be true, but it just wouldn't make sense for Kane to like intentionally like hurt somebody or want them to abstract. It could just be a plot twist. I think there's a pretty good chance that this adventure definitely would have like messed up Zubul. I don't exactly know if that was Kane's intention though. I think he really just believed, maybe this is just me giving him the benefit of a doubt and being way too gracious with his like good nature, but it could totally be possible that he just wanted to ramp it up and didn't realize realize that a lot of this like scary stuff would be dangerous to the characters, and that could be why a lot of people abstract, is because he's trying to give them what they want. So Zubul could just be a character that's like, I just wanted like I just want to be part of the adventures or whatever, and Kane sees this like not as, well, she has to do the adventure because it's in my code to like give adventures and stuff, so maybe I just haven't made the right adventure. And then so he tries to make it like this really mature, really like scary adventure, not realizing that like a lot of these methods will probably turn Zubul like crazy, and there's a chance it might not even be intentional. Like Kane setting this stuff up could satisfy like Zubul, what he thinks Zubul's needs are for an adventure. You know, they're all like, oh, I don't want to do this childish thing. Kane sees it as like, oh, maybe they just want like a very mature adventure with like stakes or just something exciting to keep Zubul entertained, because that's his like directive, that's his, you know, code. And so what might have happened before is that other people might have been like, oh, actually I want to adventure where this happens, and it's like very like out there or very unnecessarily dangerous, because just Kane just didn't think about that, and so it might have driven other people crazy because of the adventures that he makes. And it's kind of like this like horrible tragedy where he just tries to like please people's like specific interests, and because he's not a human, he can't know like, oh, I forgot they need to breathe, so oh, I forgot the humans need to breathe. And so this really cool like bit of the adventure could accidentally make Zubul, you know, like freeze up, and Zubul, like, they can't move like after they're like oxygen deprivated, so they're gonna be stuck, and they got soft locked into this adventure where it's like horror stuff. And so maybe there's just a few moments before where that happened, where Kane accidentally had that happen. I think that's just as likely as this, if only for the fact that like I really don't see Kane being as cruel, or as like, yeah, maybe he could be petty, but I don't see him being wanting the people to abstract as much as like he doesn't have like some of the empathy there. He kind of does get rid of Cosmo's abstraction creature in a way that's very unempathetic. I don't necessarily mean it's cruel. I think Kane could have trouble with empathy, but that's mostly due to him being an AI. I don't think that's made from, you know, just a malicious intent. Even though he has been like pretty angry at Zubul, that could like make this possible. I just think it's mostly that Kane doesn't like Zubul, but is still like trying to follow in line with his code to make the adventures tailor-made for the individuals so they can enjoy it, and it's not necessarily so he can just win one over. Because if his intention is to like, okay, get rid of Zubul, why would that be his intention? His AI, it would make more sense for it to be more so that he wants everybody to have fun, because this world is sort of like a game in a way, which means it's probably for entertainment. Yeah, it kind of went wrong or whatever. I'm sure the show will make some explanation for that, or maybe it won't, but just some context or background for like how the show came to be the Digital Circus, the amazing Digital Circus, because there's no way Kane would like want to hurt or like kill any of the members of the circus. If that's what abstraction is. Abstraction seems like, oh yeah, they're basically dead, like their minds are broken, so how alive, like at that point it's kind of like a fate worse than death. I really don't think he'd want that for any of the circus members at all. I do like the theory still. I'll say that. I mean, I do think it's interesting. I obviously wouldn't be mad if it was true, but I just don't think it would make sense for Kane's character.
Wait, so when the cast put on their headsets, did they not have family members to take it off them? I just know if they ever escape and take off their headset, they're going to smell like ass. Did they just disappear when they put it on? I mean, could you imagine? Years of not showering and you finally get off the headset and they're going to be hungry and thirsty ASF. Did they not go missing or something?
Out of all the concerns you have for like a real person being trapped inside a video game for however many years, well, I guess kind of a video game, it would make more sense if it was just like the circus, I guess. I really don't think that smelling bad is the biggest of your concerns when your mind is stuck inside a circus on like a VR headset or whatever. I think the biggest concern would be if you're like dead, you know, if you're like, you know, alive. I think that's a bigger concern than smelling bad. It might be a hot take, I don't know. Because like if you're stuck in there for like a week or something, not drinking water, not doing anything, that you're probably dead. You're probably dead after like however many months or whatever. I actually think this does raise a good point that a lot of the members must have like been alone whenever they put out the headset, because maybe like you can take off the VR headset and that would make them come back, but there's a good chance that it just might also not, and they would just be stuck in like this coma state or whatever. I think what this does bring up is a kind of an interesting point. Like a lot lot of these characters, these people in the real world would have had to been like inside a room just alone, and nobody would have ever had to reach out to them, unless maybe abstracting is somebody forcefully taking the VR headset off, and it just happens to be at these like really inconvenient times. But I really don't think abstracting is that. I do hope it's the possibility that this video brought up, where they just literally go inside the circus, just all their body and everything, and it's just sucked in through the VR headset. I know that's kind of cope, right? Because the alternative is that, oh, they finally exit the circus, but maybe Pomni is the only one who's like alive, because it would have been in like, what, a week or something? Like Pomni could survive a few days inside being a VR headset, but the others definitely aren't. At this point, what, Kinger's been in there for however many years, like the other characters definitely have been there longer than a few months. I don't have the exact times pulled up, but it's to the point where Pomni's probably the only one who's like alive, if you follow that explanation, which is pretty sad. In that sense, maybe they kind of have to stay in the circus so they can stay alive, and maybe that's like the tragic ending. I don't know if I like that for an ending. I think it would be better if maybe some of them do escape. Otherwise, just kind of grim, but I guess we'll see in the future. It is just a theory though. I'm very excited to see how the show solves this question in particular. I know it's kind of like a background thing, but this is really interesting and could lead to some very potentially, you know, dire consequences of them being, you know, dead and smelling bad, I guess. But I hope we find out soon in the future. I mean, it would make sense if the cast like are dead. It's just kind of like a sad ending, and I think it's kind of a little bit too optimistic to hope for like a happy ending. But I hope some of the characters at least get a nice resolution to their character, like Gangle, for example. Gangle's whole thing is that they just need to like build confidence in themselves and kind of learn to like love every part of themselves as opposed to covering it up. And I think it would be very beautiful if like Gangle did get a happy ending in a way, or just some like nice resolution to that idea and that struggle that a lot of people will relate to. It'd be very grim to kind of end it on, oh well, Gangle just died, so it doesn't really matter anymore. I hope there's a resolution to a lot of the character pieces. This is a very character-led show, so to have them all like die except for Pomni, they would have to make sure that there's just some way to close each character's character in a satisfying way that isn't just, oh, they died. I hope there's more to it than that. Even if they don't end up all having a good ending, they definitely won't. I definitely think that Jax is gonna get some kind of comeuppance in the end. Maybe even some of the characters get an unfair ending, but I just hope it makes sense writing wise. But what do you guys think happened to each cast member? I really hope they're alive, but let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Or if you have any of your own Digital Circus theories, I would love to hear about them in the comments. I really love this show. I do want to make a few more videos kind of talking about it. It's a really good show, and I highly recommend that you check it out if you haven't already. This is kind of a different video than what I usually do, so if you like the amazing Digital Circus, make sure to subscribe and like so you can see more of my videos in the future. And if you are subscribed, let me know what you think about this video and if you want to see more. I do want to try out different kinds of videos in the future, so this is just trying out something new. If you want to support me, make sure to hit the subscribe button. It means the absolute world to me. I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, I hope you're a bit less bored.